Good morning, everyone. My name is Kelly Peetum. I'm the Vice President of the Olathe Convention and Visitors Bureau. Today, we also have Susie on, our Vice President of Membership. So we'll be kind of running the show. We'll hand it off to the fellows here in a minute. But again, welcome to our Friday Zoom call. Just a few housekeeping tips. I know that we've all been on these Zoom calls or Teams calls or whatever platform that you've been on, but we are recording. When you do have questions, go to the Q&A platform, also chat. We'll kind of pull up the questions here in a little bit, but again, just kind of keep that. Everyone is muted, but again, just fire out those questions and kind of put these guys on the spot. See how they go. It's going to be a long day for these fellas because I know that opening day, they'll probably be working all night after a victory tonight. So kind of looking forward to that. But today's call is made possible by Humana. So we're going to pass it off to Jordan, let him talk a little bit about Humana and kind of introduce our speakers.
All right. Well, thank you, Kelly. I'm proud to be a sponsor of the Olathe Chamber and to call Kansas City my home. At Humana, we continue to put our members first. We have a team working around the clock specifically on how we can help our members through this pandemic. To help our members, we have eliminated a member cost share for all corona-related testing and treatments. We've sent over 13 million masks to our members to help keep them safe and eliminate the challenge of finding masks. We've partnered with Walmart, Quest, PWN Health to help simplify testing. And finally, regardless of whether you're a current customer, we've collaborated with JPR Medical to secure preferred pricing on PPE for everyone to ensure that there's no price gouging in the fall. But enough about us. We're here to celebrate the hope of opening day. As our great George Brett once said, there's nothing like opening day. There's nothing like the start of a new season. And with that, I'd like to introduce Toby Cook, Vice President of Publicity, and Jason Booker, Senior Director of Corporate Sponsorships. Gentlemen, please take us to the ballpark.
Thank you, Jordan. Thank you, Kelly. Susie, thank you for your making this happen as well. Jason's going to talk to you a little bit about the business of baseball in a minute, but I just wanted to tell you all that we're as excited as you are about opening day and maybe just a little bit more excited than you are because we've been going into Kauffman Stadium, wearing our masks, glancing out at Kauffman Stadium with only a handful of people there for a long, long time. And so the day has finally come. We're playing the Cleveland Indians in Cleveland tonight. That's our first home opener that we get to be a part of. Our second home opener is next week in Detroit. And then our third home opener, which is the real thing for us, is next Friday against when we are coming home on July the 31st to open our home portion of this very strange and weird and wonderful 60-game schedule that we're going to be playing after COVID-19. So we get a week on the road. We're kind of glad about that. We had an opportunity to keep working on our stadium and getting our safety protocols in place, and then we'll start playing baseball well, in front of a handful of people at Kauffman Stadium initially, and then hopefully a lot of people after that. But we're on radio and we're on TV. So I've been with the Royals almost 14 years. My 14-year mark is coming up on August the 1st. I was a news anchor and reporter here in Kansas City at Fox 4 for 9 years before that. Worked at a couple of television stations prior to that, and I'm from Southeast Kansas, grew up in Independence, down near Pittsburgh and Parsons and Coffeyville. And I was a big Royals fan. My dad took me to my first Royals game way back in 1976. And I've seen, thousands of Royals games in person now. And opening day, George is right. There's nothing like it. It was pretty fun playing in the postseason in 14 and 15, but there's something about opening day where you're getting started. And, the fact that it's happening on July the 31st means that we got one more month of the season in. We snuck into July, and then we're going to be playing mostly in August and September. And I thought maybe I'd touch on a couple of brief things for you about the season starting, and then Jason's going to talk to you about really the incredible experience that we had, as hard as it was, the gratifying experience we had with our customers, with our relationships, with our fans over these last 3 months. It's something else. So we had a new owner, John Sherman. He started as our chairman and CEO right before Thanksgiving of last year. We got him to Fan Fest. He had a blast. He was raring to go. He went to spring training. Then all of a sudden, we were about ready to play game night 2 of the Big 12 basketball tournament back here in Kansas City. And the NCAA tournament was going to happen next week. And everything shut down. And poor John, he was on a call with the general managers and the other owners of Major League Baseball when they told them all together that we are stopping spring training. We don't know if we're going to restart it. We don't know what the season is going to look like. And you all have experienced it with us ever since. I will say right off the bat that there wasn't a moment's hesitation from the time that all went down in mid-March where the Royals weren't fully engaged in response to the coronavirus. Within a matter of a couple of days, we had instituted both on social media and on our website these campaigns, which we called Royals Respond, to be a part of the outreach to the community. The most impressive thing was a few weeks in when John and Marnie Sherman and the investors that came together to buy the club from the late, great David Glass managed to get a couple of players to sign in and others to provide 500,000 meals. I say it a couple different ways. I say 500,000 meals, 500,000 meals to harvesters for people who were facing food insecurity. And then on and on and on. Every organization that you can think of that was on the front lines of COVID response, including the University of Kansas Hospital, the Royals were just all in. We had an interesting thing happen leading up to March the 26th. That was when the league and the Players Association were trying to come up with some sort of an agreement as to how they were going to pay the players. And they had this plan for a prorated salary that was going to kick in after this agreement on March the 26th. And then after that, and really before that, to be honest, our players just were all a part of it. They got on their social channels, they were retweeting everything that we were telling people, and they were just kind of all a part of in it together. Not to mention the fact that they were still working out at home. Some of them have batting cages at their home, and they were taking batting practice and they were working on the throws, and they were videotaping or live streaming, Zooming, FaceTime, whatever, to their coaches, and they were able to stay on top of their progress, and on and on. It got a little frustrating. It got a little awkward in June when we didn't know what the status of the labor negotiations were, but that all came through, and then they announced this 60-game schedule, 30 games on the road, 30 games at home, and then just this week announced this expanded playoff where many, many more teams are going to be in the playoffs, and they're going to fight it out of a best-of-3 series of wild cards, which I think is outstanding. I mean, I guess you're not a purist if you're a half purist, but I'm a purist in some parts of baseball. And then on this, I think the time has come for us to expand the postseason and energize the excitement of these fan bases where they really think that they can be in it all the way, these 60 games. The other thing I like is that I never liked a team playing as well as they did, sneaking into the wild card game and then being eliminated after one game. I loved it in 2014 against the Oakland A's, but other than that, I thought that was hard for a team to do. So we're very, very excited. The team on the field is going to be exciting. There's no question that our struggle is going to be pitching. Our bullpen is better than it was last year. Our starting rotation is really hurting right now because we've had guys go on the IL, the injured list, because of COVID. We've had 6 or so guys that have tested positive, and a couple of them have come back, including our great catcher, Salvador Perez. So that's going to be a struggle. There was even a report that we were pursuing Matt Harvey, who pitched for the New York Mets during the 2015 World Series against us. He missed a couple of seasons or a season and a half because of injuries. I don't know if we're going to end up landing him or not, or if that's going to become official, but we're excited that really every team has a chance, and that the Royals, with these young players and a couple of veterans like Alex Gordon and Salvador Perez and Danny Duffy, who's going to be our pitcher tonight, are going to make things exciting. So I talked about the team a little bit on the field, talked about the Royals Respond program, and I'll wrap up my first part of this by saying, and leading into Jason, that we started working with our season ticket members right away on what this season might look like if we were able to play baseball. And a good thing that I think that ownership and leadership did was decide to fold in the 2021 season with all of the messaging that we were doing about whatever we would play in 2020. So how we've approached it is it's the 2020 and 2021 season in terms of packaging. And it was, a lot of people are hurting. If you need a refund, we're going to give you a refund. If you are able to stick with us, we're going to provide some incentives to not only get you out to the ballpark for the rest of this year, but into 2021. Flat prices for 2021. So we give you a 5% bonus, and then we raise the prices on you. It doesn't do you any good. So we made that commitment. And we didn't know what it was going to be. And I will tell you, and I don't know numbers. They don't tell me numbers, so I can't say numbers I'm not supposed to say. But it was the majority, an incredible number, more than they ever expected, decided that they were going to stick with us. And I know that that was a sacrifice to people, but I think it just says a lot about how people feel about the Kansas City Royals. So Jason and I have gotten to know each other very well. We meet once a week. We start off by talking about our family first and some of the activities that we've done over the weekend. I love Jason because he's got his head on straight like Dayton Moore and several other people I know with the Royals, which is that baseball is so very important to him, but it's about number 8 on the list. We try to keep this stuff into perspective, but he cares very deeply about our partners. So Jason, I'm going to turn it over to you now.
Great. Thanks, Toby. Certainly excited to be here today, and proud Olathe resident. We both are as well. So I thought I'd mention that. And obviously have some great partners, John Deere, who's been a great long-term partner of the Royals as well, and having a chance to work with a great organization like them. So I'm certainly excited. So I serve as our Senior Director of Corporate Partnerships and Broadcast Sales. I say it's the longest title in baseball. But ultimately, what I'm responsible for is our relationships in the business community in Kansas City. So working through marketing relationships and partnerships. We have 130 corporate partners that we work with day to day. We've got 12 people on my team that manage those relationships. We also manage the Royals radio network. So the affiliate relationships, the distribution of our radio network, and then the radio sales that go into that. This will be my seventh season, 6th year at the Royals. Coming up August 19th is my anniversary date. So I was the smart one that started in August of 2014, right before both World Series runs, and became the smartest sales and marketing person in baseball. So very lucky, but just like Toby, I grew up a huge Royals fan in Hutchinson, Kansas. And one of my favorite memories is having a picture of Mark Gubiza and I with matching mullets at autograph day when I was a kid. Hard to imagine now that I had a mullet, but that's one of my favorite memories. So I'm very fortunate and proud to work for an organization that I grew up idolizing, and then having a chance now to make an impact with them. So really what we've been working with over the last 5 months or so is staying engaged with our corporate partners, finding ways to get them plugged in, mostly through community efforts. As Toby mentioned, the Royals Respond Fund, working with partners like Price Chopper, Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas City, KU Health Systems. And basically what we went to them initially is as one of our founding partners of our Community Champions programs, and said, we really need you guys to come along with us and help the food insecurity that we're battling in Kansas City. Certainly it helps that we have 2 of our larger partners as a grocery store and as a hospital partner. So we were really able to lean on them in these times. One, for a lot of educational messaging to our fans. If you saw some of the fun videos that we did on, Salvi singing, Take Me Out to the Ball Game, and washing your hands, some of the PSAs that we did, we worked really closely with some of our partners in that space to help get that messaging out there. So we felt, I think, a sense of not just being a baseball team, but as a community asset, making sure that we were using our platform to help educate people and work with them, during these challenging times. We just had a tremendous response from our corporate partners. I think we talk a lot about numbers and marketing and how we can help their brands. But at the end of the day, I think our partners really stepped up and said, this is as we mentioned, a community asset, and we want to support a Major League Baseball team in Kansas City. And I think understanding the financial challenges of not having a season, not having fans, having new ownership that just started down this path, that they really have rallied around the organization to help us. And when you look at it from a revenue perspective, really one of the only revenue streams we have right now is through our corporate partnerships, our radio network, the signage you'll see at the games behind home plate, ways that we've been able to engage with our partners through social and digital. So there's been a heavy emphasis on our department during this time because without having fans, we become one of the main revenue streams for the department. But the good thing is for our partners is that there's a bright light shining on baseball right now. And we've had a tremendous history of being a part of, great comebacks in America from, 9/11 to the earthquake in San Francisco. There was a great video that MLB put out yesterday about how baseball has helped in many ways bring people back from challenging times. So our partners have really gotten around that and are excited to be a part of that messaging and effort, starting tonight with our away opener. Just a few things I thought I'd touch on that were kind of interesting, or you might see that are a little bit different this year. If you watch some of our exhibition games on Monday and Tuesday, we've actually done some testing with new technology. So we, from a corporate partner standpoint, have the ability now to sell a digitally inserted logo on the pitcher's mound. We're also doing digitally inserted tarps in our stands that will have corporate partner messaging on it. Batter's Eye is a new kind of signage placement that you'll see as well. We were, for the first time ever, able to paint corporate partner logos on the field. So Evergy and Price Chopper you'll see on the field are painted on the first and third base foul lines. What Major League Baseball, I think, realized was, hey, this is an opportunity not only to try and retain some revenue for the organizations going through challenging times with no fans, but also a great time to innovate. And I think that that's something that I've heard across the board from corporate partners, is taking this time when you're working from home and looking at things from a different lens and learning some things that you can then bring forward when we hopefully get back to a new sense of normal down the road. So maybe just a few things I thought I'd touch on that you would see. We also really engaged with our corporate partners on social when we had some downtime over the last few months. John Deere was one of those. We did a turf tips with Trevor, who's our head groundskeeper at the K, and that was sponsored by John Deere. So really cool integrated content where you see Trevor riding around on his John Deere tractor, talking about what it's like to take care of the K, but then taking some of those tips and how you can, while you're at home, how you can make your yard look like the K. So it was a lot of fun to come up with some really cool ideas to keep our fans engaged, but also keep our partners branding out there as well. One of the big projects we've been working on as well is obviously the T-Mobile and Sprint merger. Sprint's one of our largest corporate partners. So I will tell you, when you tune into the broadcast next Friday, you're going to see a lot of magenta in the ballpark. So we've been working on rebranding and painting our Sprint bullpen and right field will now be T-Mobile. T-Mobile, I think, because of they want to really make an impact in Kansas City and know that they're here to be supportive. And there was obviously some mention of the new T-Mobile Center taking over from Sprint Center. And I think there was a lot of feedback that, is T-Mobile going to be engaged in the community? And I will tell you from the very beginning, they want to make sure and make a statement that they're here to stay in Kansas City. So it's been a lot of fun to work on that transition from T-Mobile to Sprint. But obviously some challenges when you can't get fully access to the ballpark and having signage installers when the team's there. So probably some things behind the scenes that you may not always see of us trying to get the ballpark ready, but under new guidelines, health guidelines of making sure that we're not putting our team and our players at risk either has been important. So, and then the other thing we've really been working through, I thought would be of note for this group, is hospitality. And Toby mentioned that we're hopeful that we'll be able to get fans back in the ballpark, but working through our corporate partner relationships and people who have suites, Crown Club and Diamond Club tickets, and for hosting opportunities. So what does that look like if we do get fans back in the ballpark? When that comes online, what is the interest level of corporate partners being able to entertain people or sending their clients out to games on their behalf? You may not be able to be together, but you could say, on behalf of Price Chopper, we want you to go and attend a game, or their workers on the front line who've been going through this, some reward opportunities for employees. So that's been interesting to go through. There's been some people have said, yes, give me as many tickets as you can. And there's been some that have said, out of corporate liability, we're not sure if we can send people to the game. So as you can imagine, through 130 of those relationships, working through each of those to try and figure out, well, if we have fans back in, this is what you get access to, and if we don't. So there's a lot of what if scenarios and trying to play through that. And then obviously working through amendments and agreements and trying to get your contracts back in order for 2020 of what you're actually going to deliver to corporate partners as well. So it's certainly been a busy time for us. I think we've learned a lot. We've also realized the power and importance of relationships. I think, especially in this community, in this region, as we go through this, we probably won't have a lot of our amendments signed by the time we get our games going. But we know that this is kind of a handshake city, and that as we're working together through these things, not always does it have to be a legal agreement, but working together to say, hey, we're working towards this. We know 2020 is an unusual year, but how do we make it the best we can for our city, the team, and our corporate partners? So it'll be a lot of fun. As Toby mentioned, we'll be on the radio network tonight. I think it was interesting. This may be an inside little tidbit, but Denny Matthews will be calling games from his house this year. So he will not be traveling or being at the ballpark. Obviously, he's in a obviously health as he's getting older, that wants to be a little cautious of who he's around and where he's at the ballpark. So behind the scenes, we've been working through that of how do we get Denny synced up with our radio announcers at the ballpark, Steve Fiziak and Steve Stewart, and how that kind of goes forward. So I'm not sure if that's public knowledge, but I thought that was kind of an interesting thing that we were talking about yesterday. Logistically, how do we make some of these things work in kind of these challenging times? So, and I think the last thing I would say is, I've just been really proud to be a part of an organization and be a part of this new ownership group that made the decision not to furlough any employees, to pay our minor league players. Just a real sense of pride that John stepped up in a time where, being a new owner, he probably had, in a small market, probably had every right to say, hey, we're gonna have to really make some cuts and look at some things here financially. So I'm proud to be a part of that group of an organization like that would really put their employees first. And I think has given us a good opportunity in talking to some of my counterparts at the Angels, who went from a 12-person staff to 2 during this time, that now as we're coming back, it's giving us a real advantage in relationships and with our corporate partners to continue to move forward. And I think John's really looked at that as a long-term vision, that, he's in this for the long haul and didn't look at it as a short-term way to save some money. And I think that really sent a great message to our organization. So excited about our away opening day, and looking forward to having guys out at the K next Friday for our home opener.
Perfect. Well, thank you guys for joining us this morning, both of you on the Chamber call. The Royals, Humana, you guys, and everyone you mentioned, Jason, actually is great partners of the Olathe Chamber of Commerce. So we have such a fantastic membership base. So thank you for that. So a couple questions that we have coming in. The first one, you mentioned the minor league system, and you guys kind of got some notoriety for that this year because you have done some things a little different than the other teams. Do you guys feel like that's going to set us up in the future in a positive way?
I will jump in and say, and my job as a PR guy, I handle mostly the corporate communications and the business side, where I promote. I mean, my big deal is that I promote bobbleheads. So if I can get you to come out to the ball game because you think a bobblehead is cool, then I've got a pretty hefty job in there. But I get to do a lot of things with the Royals, and one of them is to address the draft signees, the minor league players that we have signed, and they come and they do a couple of days of orientation at the ballpark and what it means to be a part of the Kansas City Royals system. And you may have seen that when we made the announcement that we were retaining all of our minor league players, many of whom will never make it to the majors, but they play baseball at various different levels with the organization. It made a huge impact on what the draft was this year. The draft went from many rounds down to 5, and we were able to sign all of our draft picks. And then there were a lot of undrafted players, and we signed 4 or 5 within the first 48 hours of the draft ending. And most people around Major League Baseball credit that, a lot of people credit that with the fact that these young men saw what the Royals did, and I got to meet them and talk to them, and it was something else. And I think that might be a turning point. The minor league system can be exhausting for people because we had the greatest minor league system in the world back in 2011, 12, and 13, and then it busted into the majors, and we went to the World Series twice. And then we had a hollowed out minor league system. Well, this move may very well give some sort of equilibrium to our minors, where Dayton has talked about, we want to be a consistent contender from here on out, not the absolutely out of it or at the top of the mark, but more consistently in contention. And maybe our minor league system can maintain some sort of a stability. So yeah, I think it's going to be huge. I think the key to it was, hey, if a parent or somebody who's watching out for a young man who is trying to get into the majors, they would be as proud as any other team to have their young man sign with the Kansas City Royals, and that's huge.
Wonderful. Okay, I have a few more questions. And the next question has to do with, and Jason, you may have already hit on this, but you guys have a new signage that's unique to 2020 with Fox 4. Did you talk a little bit about that already?
Yeah, a little bit. So one of the things that we started early on with was, okay, what are some opportunities where we can retain revenue and provide some good exposure for our partners? And working closely with Major League Baseball, with Fox Sports, and a company called Brand Brigade, which is a digital insertion company. So basically, when you see some of these new logos that are either on the field, inserted in the stands, those are all things that are done in the TV truck. And so again, some innovative opportunities. You know, European soccer was really the first ones to start that. You'll see logos on field that are pulled up. They're not actually on the field, but they're inserted at the truck. And so it's been fun to kind of work through that. And the exhibition games Monday and Tuesday, we did some testing. And I'm glad we had those games because we learned some things of size and placement. And we also got some notoriety on Twitter on Monday and Tuesday because people were joking about how many logos we had on the screen from our corporate partners. I think the fake Ned Yost account, which is always good if you can get fake Ned to recognize you, but he had put like 20 Price Chopper logos on the screen and said, "Hey, we get it, Price Chopper, you're a partner." And I'm like, it's working. You know, this is what it's about, right? And a couple people asking, who's 8x8 and what's that company? And so that's when you know it's working, when people are paying attention. And while we were testing, we also realized that, you know, Monday, it was the highest rated show in primetime as an exhibition baseball game. So it was a good reminder that while we can innovate and try and do some testing, there's also, you know, a couple 100,000 people watching the game. So we had to do some testing in front of a large audience, unfortunately, but we'll be ready to go full steam next Friday.
Perfect. You guys, so 60 season, obviously a little bit different, 60 game season, a little bit different. Do you guys see this having an impact on future seasons? Maybe it being a little shorter, or no?
I think we're all dreaming of possibilities. You know, we played the Houston Astros for a couple of exhibition games and then the St. Louis Cardinals. And I love everybody in baseball, but I'm not sure that I don't know that there are two other teams that I would enjoy booing more than the Houston Astros and the St. Louis Cardinals, which is not very nice. Because the Cardinals were my favorite National League team growing up, and then we ended up meeting them in '85, and the whole dynamic changed. Of course, the Astros went through their situation with the cheating scandal, and I'm kidding about that. The Astros are a very, 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 very good baseball team. And they almost look mid-season form. And, you know, the Royals are playing a lot of guys that have never played Major League Baseball before. But Jeff Flanagan, who covers the Royals on a daily basis for MLB.com, Royals.com, his prediction was, and I'm not saying this is our prediction, but his prediction was we could start off slow and then we're going to get hot in late August. And with the expanded playoffs, it could be very, very fun around here in September. Well, what that does is that kickstarts something for 2021. I think if we play well during this stretch, it could do some things for 2021 that could be really, really fun. Our number one draft pick from 2018 is starting tomorrow night. And we have not had a situation where we've gotten a starting pitcher draft pick to the majors this quickly in a long time. So yeah, it could be something very interesting that we haven't seen before.
And from a number of games standpoint, selfishly, because we sell corporate partnerships and the radio network, I'd like to have more games, but I understand from a fan perspective that some people think, having a shorter season might be good, but from a revenue standpoint, there does propose some challenges from season tickets and ticket out, revenue, radio revenue, TV revenue, all those things get played into that. But certainly I think it's going to be a very unique season. Every win is worth 3, basically. So every game is worth, a lot more this year. So I think that everybody's going to be a lot more intent in watching every game to see, because if you can go on a 5 or 6 game winning streak, it's like you've won 18. And so it'll be really interesting to see how that comes together. And as Toby said, with the expanded playoffs, half the league's going to get in the playoffs. So I think that makes it a lot of fun.
Perfect. I have just a few more questions. So next is, there has, of course, been rumors for a little while about you guys possibly having a stadium in a different part of the city. Does this year kind of put a damper on that, or does it kind of change the plans, or is everything still going on as normal, I guess I should say, in that aspect?
Well, I'll jump in first and say that I think that COVID has taken it off the radar, only because everything else that we had been talking about outside the white line seemed to have kind of gone dormant during these last 4 months. The discussions that we have been involved in have simply been listening and hearing what other people are doing downtown. You've seen the descriptions of plots of areas that a new downtown ballpark could be in. I was in on my very first meeting with John Sherman before he took over. He met with all of the officers, and we talked about the fact that a downtown stadium was going to be something that he would have to be discussing. And he talked a little bit about it, and he's open to listening to what people have to say. And then he wrapped it up with, man, we got an awfully nice place here. And you can take that for what it's worth. I don't think that it means one thing or the other than that we've got a lease with Jackson County through 2030. The ballpark looks great. And what we had been talking about before, we haven't had a whole lot of discussions over the last few months.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would tag onto that is perfect, Toby, is that as he said, we have a great ballpark. We have, I think a lot of very unique and interesting group areas. That's one thing when my counterparts come, they're like, gosh, you guys have a lot of places where corporate partners can get engaged and do, different sizes of events. So we really like that piece of it. Selfishly, would it be a lot of fun to work on a downtown ballpark and naming rights opportunities and things like that, just purely from my chair? It would be, a fun project to work on. But as Toby said, we've got a great place, where we get to play every day, and beautiful fountains and a good setting. So.
Well, we are definitely excited. Anything Royals Chiefs, right? The city loves. So my next question kind of pertains to the Chiefs a little bit. So the NFL just announced that they are going to be allowing fans in the games with masks. In a lot of cities, MLB teams and NFL teams are close, such as Kansas City. Do you guys think that call will play into MLB maybe allowing fans, or?
I don't know that the NFL decision is affecting ours, because the league has been talking about it since well before we were supposed to be playing baseball. And I will say that if we're able to have fans back in the stands, and this has everything to do with both the commissioner saying those cities that are allowed to have fans in the stands can now proceed on this date, and we don't know what date that is. And then working with the Jackson County Health Department and Kansas City, Missouri Health Department, and they've been great, by the way, at talking to us about what it would look like. You will see masks. This has not been announced, but I can't imagine a scenario where masks would not be required inside the stadium. Social distancing, spreading out. This has been in the media, and I can say this, that we've been working with Populous in town about how that would look, both the ingress and the egress of the stadium and getting to certain parts of the ballpark. I don't know you'll be able to walk around the stadium like you've done before. This is all for just 2020. But yeah, these things were in the works well before the NFL made any sort of announcement.
All right, I have a few questions. So you guys talked a little bit about philosophy and, how well the team did with the, getting players after the draft, and the draft was short, and then really aggressive. And some of the players spoke about they came and chose because of the philosophy and the way the team was operated. You guys see with a new coach and a new ownership, have you guys noticed anything different? You think we'll see more aggressive play or different thing? I know Matheny's a little different than Yost was, but do you guys see anything that we might see on the field this year?
Toby may have a little more thought around it, but from a team perspective, I will tell you the thing I've been really impressed with Mike Matheny, and I was in a first meeting with Toby as well when he came and sat in a conference room the day of his press conference, and we got to visit with him beforehand. And he looked at everybody and said, I'm going to be engaged in this community. I want to give back. Youth baseball is really important to me. These are, we're living in Kansas City. We're going to be here every day. We're going to be engaged in the community. And I will tell you from day one, he's been right on with that. So I think that'll translate onto the field too, is that I think he cares deeply about wanting to win and success. And I think he's going to be very good to help bring our young players along. He's really got a great leadership way about him, the way he communicates. He's had a few calls with our corporate partners where he's been willing to jump on and do some Zoom meetings over the last several months and talk about leadership and philosophy. So I've been really impressed with that. And I think, there's a lot of times where I think there was some, not criticism necessarily, but some question of, okay, he wasn't successful in St. Louis. How is this going to translate? And I think if you look at the great coaches who have had a lot of success, they've all at some point had some failure in their career and have come back. And I think this is me personally saying this, is that I think that maybe Mike feels like there's a lot to prove. And I think he feels like there's a great foundation of young players for him to work with, and has the great support of an unbelievable general manager. And I think they work very closely together. And I think you'll start to see some of that on the field, is this closeness and this kind of this team, and we're all in this together and we want to win. That's just from my perspective, what I've seen. But.
Kelly, I think that he has benefited from taking the Ned Yost path with the Royals, in that Ned was brought on after he was fired by Milwaukee as a special advisor to the general manager, and traveled all over the minor league system and was around our baseball ops department for a year before he took over. What was it, in 2010 or 2011? And Mike was the same way, became a special advisor. And I was in a couple of meetings with him. I talked a little bit about having the opportunity to get with the minor league draft signees. And he was in one of these meetings and he didn't say a word. I mean, who's that good looking guy standing? Oh, that's Mike Matheny. I'm quoting my wife, by the way. She said, he is not an unhandsome man, when she had an opportunity to go to it was the Johnson County Christmas Bureau over at the old Best Buy back in the off season that he was at. And, he's just a great family man. He's a wonderful human being, but he also had an opportunity to get to know the baseball ops department inside and out. And he just kept his mouth shut for a year. And then he was named the manager. And I absolutely believe that his deep desire to make these guys run more, play harder, and taking advantage of the fact that several of these guys have 1 year under their belt that they didn't have the last year that Ned was with them, when they were in quite a bit of development mode. We're really, really excited about these next few games.
I'm looking forward to it as well. The schedule this year, I'm trying to think, is it just divisional only and maybe a few interleague games? Can you kind of expand on that? I think people would like to know that.
We're playing the majority of our games against the American League Central. So we'll play the Indians and the White Sox and the Tigers, and really the class of the league again this year, the Minnesota Twins, a bunch. But then we have an opportunity to play some National League teams. We're going to play the Cardinals. We're playing the Cubs, right, Jason?
Yep.
Because it's such a smaller sample size / concentrated thing, these games are going to be important. But, the interesting 2-game series that we're going to be playing both at home and on the road will be coupled with the fact that Jason said every single win is a big deal and every single loss is a big deal. So it's going to feel like no other season.
Are both leagues using DHs this year too? Is that something I heard?
That's correct. Yeah, I think they said last night was the Nationals hosted. It was the first National League team to host a opening day with a DH. So it's kind of an interesting stat I saw last night.
I'm sure
for those of you who grew up with Hal McRae and were American League baseball fans all these years, and you heard people talk about, you got to have the pitcher bat, and you got that spot in the lineup that you got to work around. As much as that might be true, and Denny Matthews, whom Jason referenced, would just complain about the DH right up until the last game of last season. I think that there's a chance that the universal DH may be the future of baseball.
That's probably got the purist just flipping in their grave. So I know that a lot of guys that are national. I mean, you probably have friends like I do that live in St. Louis, and that's this is not real baseball, American League, whatever. So that'll be kind of interesting to see as well. So kind of just to, I know probably more for Jason, but I don't know if you kind of mentioned a lot of that. But was there going to be any kind of big changes in the fan experience this year, or is there things that? And I'm not sure if you maybe mentioned some things like that, but was there anything different that you guys were going to have this year?
I guess I'll start from a corporate partner perspective. There are a few new partners that we were working with. One is actually an Olathe company as well. So KC Wine Co. I'm not sure if people are familiar, if you've been out to the winery at KC Wine Co. They're a new corporate partner of ours, and we had a really cool build out of a concession stand along the first base side and some of their famous wine slushes. So that was going to be kind of a fun new amenity that we were going to work with this year. So ours was probably more, corporate partner facing from a renovation standpoint, not a ton that I think you would have seen that would have been out of the ordinary. There was a new kitchen going into the Crown Club that was going to allow for a little better experience there for a little fresher food and some things like that, that more behind the scenes that you would have seen that would have been a good amenity to have, but probably nothing major that you would have seen significantly other than, and Toby can talk about this because he's well versed in it, but the netting was obviously the big off-season project and extending the netting down the first base and third base lines. I know he was a little bit more involved with that. We get a little bit more involved in the corporate partner side and trying to bring, new drink offerings, new food offerings, and working with our partners in that regard. But Toby may be able to add on to that a little bit.
Yeah, how about that? We finally have netting extended all the way to the foul poles, and we are not protecting anybody right now in the stands. But those did get extended right before COVID hit, and then we went ahead and finished the project. And I've been out there several times, and I forget that the netting is there. They have gotten so good with this netting at making it transparent. And the concern was, you always have netting behind home plate because people don't need screaming foul balls coming right at them. Some of you who went to games a long, long time ago might remember that the netting would go up a short amount and then would cascade up to maybe the press box, and then they put the netting straight up. So if a ball was coming to you behind home plate, it was because it was a pop-up and it was slow and you could catch it. We still had those points, even though we extended the netting maybe in 2016 past the dugouts, what we call the hot zones, which were beyond the dugouts where a right-handed batter could shoot something down the first base line, left-handed batter, third base line, and those balls were coming into the stands really fast. And I think that the moment came a couple of years ago where the concern about having a net in front of you was less than the concern about people being hit by foul balls. And it became a thing throughout Major League Baseball that in 2020, one of the big stories was going to be full netting around all 30 ball clubs. And of course, that got lost in COVID. But if we're able to have fans in the stands in 2020, they will be behind netting if they're in the lower level, and they'll get used to it in a half an inning.
Very good. Well, guys, hey, I know that you guys have a long day ahead of you, so we really appreciate you being on this morning. So again, thanks, Jason and Toby, for your time this morning. I know that, like I said, it's going to be, game time's at 7:05, and you guys will probably be up watching like the rest of us. So we really do appreciate you guys today. Just a couple other things. This will be on our website. So if anybody wants to go on olathe.org, the website this is recorded and placed on there. So if you want to check that out. Again, thanks to our partners. Thanks to Humana, both the Royals and Humana, great partners, but thanks Humana for sponsoring us today. They wouldn't have been able to have it without you guys. So again, stay posted. Check out the website for anything we're going to do next week. And thanks again for joining us. You guys have a great weekend, and let's go Royals.
You too. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
Good luck tonight, guys. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.